exposed. The unexpected nameplate at my son's wedding transformed my heart. An incredible journey. Jack stood at the edge of the wedding venue, sunlight glimmering off the polished surfaces of luxury cars, a stark contrast to his own beat-up truck parked nearby. His son, Ethan, was about to marry the love of his life, but the breathtaking floral arrangements and elegant guests stirred an uneasy knot in Jack's stomach. Pride coursed through him, yet, deep inside lingered a dark cloud of anxiety that something would go terribly wrong today. Would his blue-collar roots taint this celebration? As the ceremony unfolded with joyous laughter, Jack watched Ethan, beaming with hope, and felt a tightness in his chest. All those years of working late at the steel mill, coming home exhausted, all the sacrifices made as a dedicated father, they led to this moment. His mind briefly wandered back to their life on the fringes of town, where the sound of hammers ringing away at the shop echoed the values of hard work. But today, in this sea of elegance and affluence, he began to question if they truly belonged. The reception was a whirlwind of clinking glasses and lively chatter. Yet, amid the festivity, a nameplate on the head table caught Jack's eye, in honor of James Miller. His breath hitched. It was his late father, the war veteran who faced life with dignity. Jack's heart sank further. Here was his father's name, a tribute to a man whose sacrifices went largely unrecognized during his life. Pain and pride tangled within him like weeds. That oversight festered inside, igniting old resentments toward a father he respected yet felt failed by. All around him the laughter blurred into a wall of noise. Jack felt his resentment swell, not just toward his father's absent tribute but also toward Ethan's fiancée's family, the picture of privilege. Their laughter felt mocking compared to the blue-collar struggles he knew. With every toast raised in their honor, Jack's anger twisted tighter until he couldn't ignore it any longer. "Dad, let us talk." Ethan's voice cut through the fog, but he couldn't grasp the depth of his father's discontent. Their hearts collided in a tense moment, swirling emotions spilling into sharp words. "They're just people," Ethan pleaded, trying to bridge the two worlds about to unite. But Jack's face darkened, recognizing the glaring divide between the inherited wealth of his son's new family and their humble existence. Suddenly, Jack remembered his father's stories laden with resilience, and a flame sparked within him. The wedding was not just about Ethan. It was a celebration of family, love, and acknowledgement. He felt an urgency to reclaim his father's legacy and, perhaps most importantly, the place they had in this new extended family. Before he could second-guess himself, Jack stepped forward, heart racing, and cleared his throat. Silence hung over the room, anticipation electrifying the air. He began to speak, pouring out a heartfelt tribute to his father, his voice shaking with emotion. James Miller was a man who fought for family, honor, and what it meant to be American. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack's voice grew stronger as he declared the true meaning of success wasn't glittering cars or designer suits, but the grit and grind of blue-collar work. He spoke not only for himself but also for every steelworker who carried their legacy on their shoulders. As his words hung in the air, he scanned the crowd, gauging reactions. Would his vulnerability lead to a bridge between worlds, or expose deeper divides? The tension was palpable, laughter drowned in a sea of unspoken questions. Jack took a breath, silently pleading for unity, knowing the next moment could change everything. Jack's heart raced, and he could feel the weight of every gaze in the room pressing down on him. The silence stretched thick and heavy, creating a space where he could almost hear the whispers of doubt that clung to the walls. He wondered if he had gone too far, if he'd unraveled something that could never be stitched back together. Then, from the back of the room, a tall figure stood. It was Ethan's future father-in-law, a man used to navigating these upscale gatherings with effortless charm. His suit tailored to perfection, he looked out of place in this moment of raw honesty. Jack's stomach twisted as the man raised a glass, the movement gaining the attention of the guests. "Mr. Miller, that was quite an impassioned speech," he began, his voice smooth. But perhaps we should keep discussions about past struggles to a minimum? This is a joyful occasion after all. Laughter bubbled from a few corners, poking at Jack's heart like sharp needles. Did they see him as the intruder? Just some laborer trying to upstage a fine event? Before Jack could respond, Ethan stepped between them, his face tight with frustration. "Dad, please," Ethan said, his voice calm yet urgent. "This isn't, I mean, we want everyone to celebrate, not dwell on the past." Jack felt the sting of his son's plea like a slap to the face. Did he not understand the importance of remembering where they came from? "No," Jack replied, forcing the words past the lump in his throat. "This is exactly why I needed to say this. It's about who we are, about my father's hard work that's forgotten in a room filled with privilege." He glanced around again, seeing some faces nodding, others looking away awkwardly. Ethan's fiancée Sarah stepped forward, her usual composed demeanor faltering. "Jack, I appreciate your passion, but we all have a different story. Can't we celebrate in unity today?" Her big blue eyes searched his, a hint of desperation in her tone. Jack's heart broke at the sight of her concern. He could see she meant well, but another voice cut through the shaky, teary one of his own mother, Rose, who had remained in the shadows until that moment. "This isn't what your father would have wanted, Jack," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "He loved a good party, but he also loved to bring us together. Remember the times he'd tell us stories while we sat around the fire?" Jack's face softened at the memory. The fire crackling, their family enveloped in warmth and laughter. The tales of resilience and hope. But did he have your father's courage? What would James Miller do right now, faced with the divide before him? The room buzzed with whispers as Jack stood frozen, wrestling with his feelings. He realized it wasn't just about proof, a name, a legacy. It was about connection, about honor, and the need to reclaim the narrative of their family. Taking a deep breath, Jack faced Ethan and Sarah again. "I'm sorry," he began, fighting the emotions welling up inside him. "I don't want to spoil your day. But maybe acknowledging where we come from could build bridges instead of walls." As Jack spoke those words, he caught sight of an older gentleman nodding, one of the steelworkers from his past days at the mill. His presence felt grounding. If he could share this moment, perhaps others could too. Ethan looked at Jack, the bridge forming in his wide eyes, the understanding sparking a flicker of hope. "Let us celebrate our stories, Dad," he said quietly, the tension lifting from his shoulders. "Let us share them together." Suddenly Jack's heart surged. Could they really embrace both worlds? Hope sparked within him at the thought, but just as he opened his mouth to respond back, the room dimmed unexpectedly, and murmurs bubbled up anew. The doors swung open wide and a strange figure stepped in, a figure from the past that had the power to change everything once more. Jack's pulse quickened. Who was this person and what would they reveal? The room fell into an uneasy hush as the doors swung wide. Jack squinted against the bright light streaming in, trying to make out the figure stepping cautiously into the space. It was a woman, older, with hair streaked with gray. Jack's breath caught in his throat, recognition crashing over him like a tidal wave. "Margaret," he whispered, barely audible. It had been decades since he'd last seen her. Margaret, the daughter of his father's closest friend, who he had grown up alongside. Their childhood bond had faded as life pulled them in different directions, just like the mill did to families, tearing apart friendships and connections. Her presence felt surreal, like a ghost from a cherished memory. What was she doing here at Ethan's wedding? As she approached, the guests murmured among themselves, curiosity piquing as they eyed Jack, then Margaret. Jack's heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. Questions flooded his mind. Was this a good thing? A bad one? Would she acknowledge the pain of their shared past? Or come with painful reminders wrapped in regret? "Jack," she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "It's been too long." Seeing her again raised a mix of feelings. Joy and fear danced within him. Memories rushed back, moments spent together in the old neighborhood. Secrets whispered beneath the stars, laughter echoing between them like the sound of the wind in the trees. He marveled at how time had changed their lives, but not the thread of connection he felt. "Why are you here?" he managed, keeping his voice low but desperate. Margaret glanced at the crowd, then back at him. "I heard about your son's wedding, the celebration of new beginnings. But I also know how hard it can be to forget. I learned that the hard way, Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears, and a wave of pain washed over Jack. Memories of their families intertwined began to unravel, each thread marked by loss and hope. Ethan shifted nervously behind Jack, catching his father's attention. "Dad, who is she?" Jack turned his head slightly, his mind racing. "Margaret. She used to be a big part of my life. We shared a lot." "Shared what?" Ethan's voice was sharp, piercing through the tension. Margaret stepped closer to them, the eyes of the room feeling not so heavy but expectant. "Stories. Secrets. Lessons learned from lost dreams. I wanted to share with everyone today, especially with you, Ethan." She shifted her gaze, settling on the young couple. Jack's chest tightened. A part of him knowing this was the moment they could all connect. He sensed the room's growing curiosity, the shifting energy rising between the past and the present. "What do you mean?" Jack asked, his voice thick with uncertainty. With a deep breath, Margaret nodded. "I came to share a story of resilience from our fathers and us. To remind everyone of the strength forged in hardship. Perhaps it's what needs to be rekindled for all our sakes." Jack's heart soared. Could they really bring forth that connection in such a public space? Could this wedding transform not just their lives but reignite shared histories long laid to rest? But just as hope fluttered in his chest, the excitement in the room twisted. People began to murmur again, voices rising and intertwining. The tension surged once more as Margaret opened her mouth to speak, but would her words reshape everything? Jack held his breath, yearning for truth, for healing, for whatever came next. Would history finally be spoken, and would it bring them together or tear them apart? Margaret took a step forward, her eyes scanning the crowd, which had now fallen completely silent, all attention pinpointing on her. Jack could see a flicker of doubt play across her face, as if the weight of their shared past pressed heavily against her. She took a deep breath, a shaky inhale, and began to speak. "I remember the last time we were together," Margaret said, her voice soft yet resonant. "It was at your family's old house before everything changed. Your father had just taken over the mill. We were happy then." A warm light flickered in Jack's eyes as he thought back. The memory rushed in. How they danced in the backyard, the sun setting behind the trees. Laughter echoed in his mind like an old song, comforting yet bittersweet. "But times grew hard," she continued, grounding him back to the present. "Families parted ways because of the mill's struggles. Friendships faded. It was as if we all had to put the past behind us to survive." Heartache colored her voice. Jack could hear the tremor beneath the surface. He wanted to shout out that they hadn't forgotten. He hadn't forgotten. Ethan, standing behind him, shifted again, clearly uncomfortable with all the personal history bubbling to the surface. Jack felt a pang of guilt. Was this truly the time for these old stories? Yet a part of him also recognized the importance. If they were going to heal as a family, they had to confront what was broken. "Tonight we celebrate love," Margaret went on, "but we also have to acknowledge our scars. Love can heal. It can bridge the gaps left by pain. We must allow ourselves to remember, to embrace the journey we've all been on, together and apart." Jack's heart raced. Her words resonated deep within him like echoes from a distant past. As Margaret spoke, he felt the tension in the air start to lift slightly, as if the crowd too was beginning to feel the power of her message. "Ethan," she said, directing her gaze towards Jack's son, "your father and I shared something that I believe can guide you today. It was the understanding that even when time pulls us apart, it's our memories, our challenges, and our resilience that keep us connected. You have the chance to forge a new path with your marriage, but never forget those who walked before you." Jack examined Ethan's face, a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. He was still processing the sudden appearance of a woman who held a significant part of his father's past. Margaret's voice softened. "The years have taught me that making peace with the past allows us to embrace the future. I came here today not just for Jack but for all of you, to remind you that love is the strongest force we possess. Embrace it, cherish it, and never let it go." A small round of applause began, uncertain but growing as guests started to feel the weight of her words. Jack's chest swelled with emotion. This was more than a wedding. It was a chance to reforge lost connections, to heal wounds that had long been buried in the shadows. But just as hope seemed palpable, a loud crash startled them. Chairs clattered as someone stumbled back, a face contorted by a mix of surprise and fear. The crowd hushed once more, the air thick with unspoken fears. What now? Jack's immediate thoughts raced. What had just been shared was significant, but this disruption hinted at hidden turmoil beneath the surface. All the threads they had begun to weave between past and present were now at risk of being torn again. He turned to Margaret, whose look of sheer concern mirrored his own. What could possibly happen now? He wondered, feeling the intensity thrum between them. The wedding, the hope, the healing, they were all about to change again. What lay ahead felt uncertain, but Jack knew one thing for sure: whatever it was, it could not be ignored. The sound of crashing chairs faded into a stunned silence. Jack instinctively moved closer to Ethan, feeling the tension in the air like a heavy weight. The crowd's collective breath hung like a thick fog, uncertainty coloring every face. A woman stumbled into view, her hair disheveled and eyes wide with panic. It took a second for Jack to recognize her: Marissa, a former classmate of Ethan's. He remembered her as the smart, ambitious girl who had always hung around his son during high school. But now her presence felt like a jarring note in an already emotional symphony. "Ethan, I'm so sorry," Marissa exclaimed, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just had to say something." Jack sensed Ethan's unease. His son's face paled as he looked between Marissa and Margaret. What could she possibly want to share now? The delicate fabric of the evening felt like it was unraveling, and Jack's mind raced, desperate to figure out how to hold everything together. "Come on, just breathe," Marissa said, inhaling deeply as if trying to steady herself. "I need to tell you both something important." Her hands trembled at her sides, and Jack could see the sparkle of unshed tears in her eyes. Margaret stepped forward, her maternal instincts kicking in. "This is about something urgent. Perhaps we should hear it. Right now we're all family here in one way or another." Ethan's shoulders were tight, clearly torn. Jack could feel the wave of protective instinct surge within him. He had no idea what Marissa was about to bring to light, but the stakes felt alarmingly high. "Okay," Ethan finally said, exhaling sharply. "What is it, Marissa?" "It's about your mother," she replied, her voice low and almost lost amid the swirling emotions. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Why was Marissa bringing up the past now on this day? Margaret's jaw tightened. "My mother? What's going on?" "I found something, a letter. I know it's been years, but I think you both need to read it. It's about the mill, about your family." Marissa's voice was shaky but determined. "I didn't want to wait. I wanted you to have it as soon as possible. I thought it might help." Jack felt the world freeze around them. He remembered the stories, the whispers that had lingered throughout his childhood. Dark secrets and rumors about the mill's troubles, about choices that families made. Before he could fully process it, he felt Margaret's fierce resolve. Whatever was in that letter had the potential to shake their very foundations. "Just give it to me, Marissa," Jack said, his voice low but firm. "What do you know?" Marissa nodded, fumbling in her bag. She pulled out a worn envelope, edges frayed with age. "I found this at my parents' house in a box of old things." She hesitated, her eyes darting between the two of them. "It's about your father, Jack and Margaret." The crowd spread in a hushed murmur, eyes flickering between the three of them. The weight of the moment hung heavy, and for the first time, Jack felt the sharp urgency of their intertwined destinies. Everything they had just started to rebuild was suddenly at the precipice of discovery as Marissa stepped forward and handed the letter into Jack's trembling hands. His heart raced. Could this really hold the key to their past? What truth had been lurking, hidden for so long, just waiting to be unleashed? Jack glanced at Margaret, her expression a mix of confusion and determination. "We can't turn back now," he whispered, the letter burning between his fingers. What lay inside it could change everything. Was this the healing they needed, or yet another fracture in their fragile bonds? With steady resolve, he tore open the envelope, pulse quickening, eyes locked on Margaret's. They were about to uncover a truth that could reshape their paths forever. And then as Jack unfolded the letter, a shadow of dread washed over him. What could it possibly reveal? Jack's hands trembled as he unfolded the letter, revealing pages yellowed with age. The delicate paper crackled in the stillness. He took a deep breath, the air feeling heavy with unspoken words. Everyone around him seemed to hold their breath, the tension palpable, ready to snap at any moment. Dear Margaret, he read aloud, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swimming in his gut. I know this letter may never reach you, or perhaps you will find it at a time when it's too late. But I must speak my truth. For the sake of our family and what we've built. Jack's heart raced. The words seemed to pulse with a life of their own. He glanced at Margaret. She stood frozen, eyes wide, the flickering light of realization flashing across her face. Wait, Ethan interrupted, leaning closer. Who wrote this? Jack swallowed hard. I don't know yet. He continued to read, each line pulling him deeper into a history he'd thought was long buried. The letter spoke of regrets, missed opportunities, and revealing details about the mill that echoed the whispers he had tucked away in the back of his mind. As he read the names of people he recognized, some friendly, others estranged, buried memories began to stir. The vivid recollections of laughter, arguments, and long-ago summer days haunted him. Each connection rekindled a tangled web of emotions he had tried to forget. It talks about a fire, Jack breathed, his brow furrowing. A fire that almost destroyed everything. Margaret's voice wobbled when she asked, What do you mean? What fire? It says it was deliberate, a decision made to save the mill at the cost of other things, other lives. Every word felt like pulling an invisible thread, unraveling the fabric of his family's legacy. Jack could see gasps ripple through the gathering crowd, eyes darting in disbelief, expressions shifting from confusion to dawning horror. Who would do something like that? Ethan murmured, fear creeping into his voice. Jack continued reading, growing more intense with each sentence. It mentions a name, a woman who had ties to both our families. Someone who played a larger role than any of us knew. The intimacy of the letter wrapped around him, threatening to choke as secrets unfurled from their long-held silence. Who? Margaret's whispered urgency felt like a plea for clarity amidst chaos. Jack met her searching gaze, heart pounding. She's claiming it's our mother. The finality of those words hung in the air, heavy with implications. The truth was no longer just a forgotten whisper. It was a thunderous revelation that could tear apart everything they thought they knew. Margaret's hands found her face, her breath hitching as if she were processing a blow. But that's impossible. Jack felt the ground shift beneath them. The letter seemingly alive with the power to transform. Was it a gift or a curse? The room filled with murmurs, the crowd's curiosity morphing into dread. This doesn't change anything, he insisted, looking at them all, desperation fueling his words. We're still family. But at what cost? Ethan's voice wavered. What truth have we built our lives on? As Jack stared at the letter, no longer just words, but a map to tangled memories and uncharted emotions, he realized this confrontation would lay bare everything they had hidden. While the night was meant for celebration, it now spiraled into an unknown abyss. With a deep, shuddering breath, Jack knew they had to dive deeper into these secrets. They couldn't run from what lay ahead. Let us find out the truth, he said quietly, summoning a fragile strength. Together. A wave of agreement washed over the group, but it was tinged with fear. Each step forward would require a reckoning, a confrontation with their past, and a question that loomed fiercely. Would the truth heal their bonds or shatter them irrevocably? Before they could brace themselves for the next revelation, the door swung open, and a figure stepped into the light. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the indomitable face from the past, a figure long thought, buried beneath layers of history. Surprised, the newcomer said. A knowing smile etched upon their face. What was about to unfold? The truth was no longer a question of the past, but a challenge to their future. Jack's heart thumped in his chest as he processed the unexpected figure standing in the doorway. The air felt electric, charged with memories and unsaid words. There, framed in the glow of the warm light, was Grandma Hazel, a woman he thought was lost to time, buried beneath years of resentment and silence. Hazel, Margaret breathed, disbelief clouding her voice. Hazel's grin widened as she stepped further into the room. I thought a wedding was the perfect occasion to come home. Her tone was light, but the weight of her presence carried a gravity that pulled everyone in. Jack's mind raced. He remembered holidays spent in her home, laughter echoing off the walls. Yet, those same walls had crumbled with arguments over long-held grudges. As the once-distant past converged with the tumultuous present, unease brewed in the pit of his stomach. Why now? Jack found his voice, laced with a mix of hope and caution. You left us years ago, why come back now? Hazel's eyes softened, her expression unreadable. Family has a way of calling us back, doesn't it? Especially when there are truths that need to be confronted. Every eye in the room sharpened, a river of emotions flowing through the gathering. Jack felt the weight of the letter in his hands, as if it was urging him to press on. You know about the letter? He asked, tension coiling in his chest. Yes, she answered simply, her voice steady but deep with unspoken pain. I wrote it. Gasps filled the room, mingling shock with confusion. Jack could almost feel the memories bruising, pressing against the fragile threads binding their family together. But you, how could you? I had my reasons, Hazel replied, steadying herself against the hallway wall. I thought I was protecting you all, but protecting means facing things, not running away. And I ran. I should have been here, especially after what happened. Margaret stepped closer, her brow furrowed. What happened, Grandma? What do you mean? Hazel exhaled slowly, the rawness of the moment cascading over them like a tidal wave. The fire, she whispered, eyes locking onto Jack's. It was a choice we made. I thought it would save the mill, our legacy. But we lost so much more. Lives were affected, and I wasn't strong enough to face my part in it. The room shifted. Whispers of disbelief flicked through the crowd. Jack felt the world tilt beneath him, as if everything he thought he knew was now teetering on the edge of a cliff. You? You caused the fire? No. Hazel's voice burst forth, laden with emotion. I didn't want it. I was trying to protect our family, but the end didn't justify the means. Tears glistened in Margaret's eyes. What do you mean? Who else was involved? That's something you need to uncover together. I wasn't the only one who made that choice, Hazel said, her gaze somber. The atmosphere crackled with tension. They were standing on the threshold of countless conversations left unspoken. Jack's heart raced. A fire of hope sparked in him despite the heavy truth. Could they really untangle the mess that was their history? What else lay buried beneath the ashes? Are you willing to help us figure this out? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hazel straightened, and for the first time since entering, the weight of years seemed to lift from her shoulders. I want to, she said. I'm ready to come back and face it all. Together. As the room collectively held its breath, Jack felt something shift inside him, a flicker of possibility. What if they could unearth the truth? But as he gazed into his grandmother's eyes, knowing the depth of the secrets they were now tangled in, he also recognized the fragile balance ahead. Would facing these truths bind them tighter or tear them apart? With a deep breath, Jack knew they were at a precipice, teetering on the edge of revelation. Let us start, he said, the words catching in his throat. But what if the truth isn't what we hope? As new doubts circled in their minds, the weight of the moment loomed large, echoing in their hearts. Would the revelations bring peace, or would they unleash chaos? Would they unite them or push them apart further? The journey was only just beginning. Jack shifted his weight from one foot to the other, the air thick with unspoken concerns. The room felt smaller, beset by whispers of the past that buzzed like bees around their heads. Hazel shifted slightly, her eyes darting around the room before landing back on Jack. Can we talk somewhere private? He nodded, still processing her revelation. The kitchen felt familiar enough yet foreign, the shadows cast by the overhead light stretching long like the memories that haunted him, hazardous like the flames. Margaret, sensing the need for distance, slipped out of the room, her presence diffusing like air slowly escaping a balloon. Silence followed, clinging around Jack and Hazel, the weight of everything they had to say pressing down on them. Jack, Hazel began, her voice trembling. I never meant for things to spiral out of control. That fire, it was a catastrophic culmination of poor choices. Choices I made. He felt his heartbeat quicken. Here was his grandmother, a woman deigned to be an untouchable figure from his childhood, reduced to vulnerability. What do you mean? What were the choices? Hazel rubbed her hands together, her fingers fidgeting. I was influenced, Jack. By others, by fear, and by the very idea of protecting our family name. In my mind I was a guardian, but I was really just a fool. Jack swallowed, his throat tight. Who else was involved? You said it wasn't just you. There were discussions, conspiracies. I wasn't alone at that table. Plotting it was like the pressure of our legacy fell on all of us. Your grandfather, he felt it too. There are things I haven't shared because her voice wavered. Because it hurt too much. His heart raced as he processed the depth of her words. Every time he felt the shadow of their family's past loom over him, he hadn't realized how many had carried that weight. We need to know everything, Grandma. We need a window into that time so we can heal. Hazel looked deeply into Jack's eyes, searching for understanding. The fire wasn't just destruction. It was a catalyst. Chased me away. I went thinking I was doing the right thing, but it only made everything worse. I lost not just the mill but my purpose. My family, then let us find it together, he said, the determination rising in him. Let us uncover the truth, no matter how messy it is. She hesitated, as if gathering the last remnants of her courage. You have to promise me that you'll be ready for what you find. It might shake the very foundations of everything you know. Jack crossed his arms, gathering the strength in his resolve. I don't care what we find. We can't keep hiding from our past. Not anymore. As she nodded, Jack's mind whirled with images of the mill, the fire dancing behind his eyelids like a haunting memory fighting for release. What secrets had their family buried? What had Hazel held on to all these years? I want to start tomorrow, he declared, prying open a door he had never imagined. Let us gather the others. We'll confront them together. Hazel's lips quirked into a semblance of a smile. It's time to face the music, isn't it? Jack felt the gravity of the moment settle over them. The walls were familiar, yet the air felt charged with new possibilities. But the looming question still haunted him: what if the truth shattered everything they held dear? Would the fire that once destroyed them light a new path forward? Or would it only consume them once more? As they exited the kitchen, Jack knew one thing for certain. The next day would change everything. What lay ahead was uncertain, but the first step into the unknown had already begun. Morning light streamed into the house, illuminating the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Jack could hardly swallow down the lump of anticipation that had built in his throat overnight. He stood at the kitchen table, a freshly brewed cup of coffee steaming before him, but he couldn't bring himself to take a sip. Instead, his mind flitted back and forth between what Hazel had shared and the shadows that loomed ahead. The clock ticked loudly, a haunting reminder that time was slipping away. He took a deep breath, the familiar smell of coffee mingling with the past, as if both were begging for recognition. He wanted to grasp this moment, to capture the heart of their family's story before it got lost in the noise of everyday life. Hazel joined him seconds later, her footsteps as soft as a whisper. She looked older today, a weight born not just from the secrets she had held but from a lifetime of carrying regret. There was a new fire in her eyes, though a spark that Jack hadn't noticed before. Are you ready? She asked gently. He nodded, though he felt a bit of hesitation creep into his heart. I think so, he replied, though the words felt more like a shield than a promise. Together, they made their way to the living room, where the tensions of the past awaited. As they entered, Jack noticed Margaret sitting on the couch, her fingers grazing the fabric as if she were searching for comfort. She looked up at them, confused yet expectant. Is it time? She asked, her voice hoarse. We're gathering everyone, Jack said, trying to project a calm he didn't quite feel. We need to explain what happened and why. Margaret nodded slowly. The room felt charged, each person caught in a delicate thread of anticipation and anxiety. Jack could hear the clock ticking loudly in his mind as he moved to the cabinet, pulling out dusty albums filled with faded photographs, relics of their family's past. Maybe these can help, he suggested, thumbing through the pages. Each image brought memories flooding back, the laughter and joy tinged with shadows. He could hear the clamor of voices from the past. Laughter, arguments, love memories tangled with the flames that had consumed their family legacy. Hazel stepped closer, brushing her fingers over a picture of Jack's grandfather in front of the mill. We have to remember them, not just the mistakes, but the love they shared, the dreams they had. That fire. It took so much from us, but it can also help us understand. Jack felt a tightness in his chest. It feels like walking into a battlefield, he murmured. Sometimes battles are necessary, Hazel said softly. Only then can we find peace. As they began to discuss who should come, Jack felt a sudden jolt in his chest. The urgency twisted in him. Who knew what old wounds might open? What long-buried truths would surface? Would they uncover a connection so profound it would transform how they viewed their lives? What if they don't want to talk? Margaret asked quietly. They have to, Jack insisted. If we don't confront this together, we only allow the past to keep us shackled. We need to unravel this for us, for Dad, for everyone the fire took from us. Hazel placed a shaky hand on his shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that wrapped around his heart. Let us do this, she said. Her voice firmed out as he gathered the photographs in his hands. Jack couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in his gut of foreboding caution. What if grappling with those memories revealed something more destructive than they could handle? Would that truth tear them apart instead of bringing them back together? They stood ready to face the unknown, each holding a piece of their tangled history. In that moment, Jack realized they were not just on the verge of resurfacing old ghosts, but also on the cusp of potentially reshaping their entire future. As they prepared to call their family together, an icy breath of anxiety washed over him. The truth waited just beyond the door of their past. Was he truly ready to open it? With resolve filling the room, he took a step toward the future, but a part of him still lingered in uncertainty. Would today bring reconciliation or ruin? As the time approached, Jack felt the weight of the past on his shoulders, nearly unbearable but flickering with a light of hope. The room was alive with the anticipation that thickened the air. Jack looked at the photographs spread out on the table, glimpses into lives filled with joy, laughter, and love, but also buried beneath layers of regrets and secrets. Are you ready? Hazel asked again, her voice softer now, almost a plea for reassurance. Jack took a deep breath, bringing the warmth of love and the chill of fear into one moment. Yes, he replied, voice steadier than he felt. We have to do this. For us. Margaret joined them, her gaze firm. For everyone who stood in the flames. The doorbell rang. It echoed like a gunshot through the silence. Jack exchanged glances with Hazel and Margaret, a silent understanding passing between them. This was it, the moment for healing, or perhaps the moment for unearthing the very souls buried within their family's history. Jack stepped to the door, hesitating just a moment before grasping the handle. The moment he opened it, he found the familiar faces, their family, hesitant but pushing through anxiety to seek answers. Each one a piece of this complicated tapestry. Ethan stood at the back, his eyes an intense shade of readiness mixed with apprehension. One by one they walked in. Old aunts, uncles, and cousins. The air felt charged with nervous energy. They gathered in the cozy living room, a place where expectations danced alongside fears, where memories threatened to reshape them all. Thank you for coming, Jack began, his heart pounding. Today we need to talk about who we are and where we came from. He felt his stomach twist as he shared their findings, the letter, the fire, and Hazel's long absence. Each word weighed heavily as silence enveloped them. Shells of hesitation and judgment fell into place, mirroring Jack's uncertainty. They all exchanged glances, murmurs rippling through the room. Yet, Jack's resolve only solidified. We have the chance to reclaim our family's story. Let us confront the weight of our past together. As Jack spoke, he could see recognition bloom in their expressions, flickers of understanding illuminating the confusion. Voices tangled together, sharing memories, laughter, and sadness that mingled like sunlight shining through shadows. It was cathartic, surreal. The air buzzed, freeing them from shackles that felt invisible until this moment. Margaret stood, her eyes misty. I didn't know how much we were all hurting. Each of us carrying different pieces of the blame, but how do we heal? The murmurs settled and Hazel stepped forward. Sorry is a start, but healing requires courage. Courage to face scars and create our own paths. At that moment, Jack felt all eyes focused on him again. A shaky breath escaped him. The fire might have taken away our past, but it can also ignite hope. We can fashion new dreams together. His voice resonated, igniting something within the group. Jack felt a glimmer of hope swelling, expanding into the crowded room. They began to nod, brothers and sisters, cousins and aunts, embracing this new truth that surmounted the fears. Together, Hazel echoed. They laid bare their hearts. Tears flowed as they shared wounds, regrets melded into understanding. Each story they told fostered connection rather than division. Families told tales of resilience, recounting same struggles that only differed in name and place. Jack felt the burden of history lift slightly, whispers transforming into laughter. Suddenly, Ethan broke in, his voice stronger. Let us decide how we want to move forward. We all have the choice to let the past haunt us or release it. Jack felt a swell of pride in his son's insight. This journey was about understanding, accepting not just claiming a legacy, but linking themselves to something larger. Eventually, Hazel said with a determined fire, "We need to honor the lost. You cannot replace what's gone, but we can build on what's left." With those words, the room transitioned. They devised a plan to continue the conversation, to honor their ghosts in ways that mattered. They would dedicate the mill, their family legacy, as a community center for remembering. Jack felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. Somewhere within him, he knew that they had transformed their legacy from a tale of despair into one of hope, a bridge spanning the gaps of their history. One that would carry their family into a future brightened by understanding and love. As they closed the gathering, Jack stood with his arms wide, engulfing his family. "Together, we embrace the better stories ahead." Laughter erupted, weaving an indelible fabric that only family can create. They were no longer weighed down by the past. They bore it as an honor. Jack realized this was not the end but the beginning. An unbreakable bond rooted in resilience emerged, glowing brighter than any shadows cast before them. As they all chatted, joy emanated through the room. Jack lifted his gaze to the sun streaming through the window. The warmth encased him, and he felt his father smiling from above, proud of where they'd come, and hopeful for where they'd go. Now's the time. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help keep the good content flowing. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Real fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.